They say shortcuts save you time. But in the wrong alley, time doesn't work the same way. In the wrong alley, shadows don't just fall, they watch. Tonight, I'll take you through for true-sounding nightmares that happened in the forgotten corners of the city, and by the end, you might think twice before ever stepping into a back alley again. Story 1: The Alley That Loops. I've walked the same shortcut home for years. A long, narrow alley, barely wide enough for a car to squeeze through. The walls are stained with age, covered in graffiti that no one ever bothers to clean. There's one flickering street light near the middle, buzzing like it's alive. That night felt different. The air was heavy, like rain was coming, though the sky was clear. The smell of damp trash clung to the walls. My footsteps echoed too loudly, bouncing back at me as if I wasn't alone. At first, I didn't notice, but after a few minutes, something gnawed at me. The street at the end of the alley. It wasn't getting any closer. I walked faster, still the same. I looked behind me. The way I entered was gone, just more alley, stretching into forever. My heart started to pound. I told myself it was stress, that I was tired, imagining things. But then I noticed the graffiti, a skull, black outlines dripping red. I passed it once, then again and again. Every wall I passed had the same skull, bleeding paint, the red still fresh as if someone had just finished it. That's when I heard the footsteps, soft at first, then dragging, scraping, coming from behind. I spun around, my phone flashlight trembling in my hand, and I saw it, something tall, impossibly thin, its arms brushing the walls on either side, its face hidden in shadow, but its eyes glowed, catching the light. It tilted its head like it was studying me. I ran. I didn't care about making sense of it anymore. I sprinted until my lungs burned. The exit never came closer. The skulls stared back at me from every wall, and the thing, it was faster. I could hear its claws tapping on the ground, feel its breath pushing against my neck. Desperate, I ducked into a side passage I swore hadn't been there before. It was tighter, claustrophobic, bricks scraping my arms as I pushed through, but it ended in a wall. I turned around. It was there, filling the passage, its jaw opening wide too wide, bone cracking, a mouth of darkness stretching down its chest. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, I was standing at the street again. The alley looked normal. Cars passed. A couple walked by, laughing. I stumbled out, shaking. The world went on like nothing had happened. But every night since, when I pass that alley, the streetlight flickers, and in the dark, I see it standing there, waiting. Story 2. The Man Behind the Dumpster. I live in a quiet part of the city, the kind of neighborhood where everything feels safe on the surface, but there are these little cracks that remind you it isn't. For me, that crack was a narrow service alley right next to my apartment building. It wasn't much more than a shortcut, a stretch of cracked pavement lined with dumpsters, recycling bins, and graffiti-tagged brick walls that seemed to sweat grease. The smell was the first thing you noticed when you stepped inside, a cocktail of rotting food, stale beer, piss, and something chemical that clung to the back of your throat. On summer nights, the air seemed thick with it. Most people avoided the alley, but if I was tired or in a hurry, I cut through. I hated it, but it shaved 5 minutes off my walk. That night, I was walking home late, head down, phone in hand. My screen was the only light, glowing against the darkness, my thumbs tapping out half-distracted texts. The city around me was strangely still. No cars, no footsteps, just the soft hum of a street lamp flickering at the far end of the alley, and then I felt it, that prickle, the unmistakable weight of being watched. I froze mid-step. My eyes lifted slowly, adjusting to the dim light. That's when I saw him. Crouched behind the nearest dumpster was a man. At first, I thought he was homeless, maybe looking for cans or food scraps, but no. He wasn't rummaging, he wasn't moving, he was perfectly still. His pale face caught a sliver of moonlight, almost glowing against the blackened metal of the dumpster. His eyes, wide, too wide, they locked onto mine, unblinking, like he'd been waiting for me. And his posture, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't surprised that I'd seen him. He was crouched in a way that felt deliberate, theatrical, like a predator lowering itself before a pounce. Something about it was so wrong. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep moving, pretending like I hadn't noticed. My footsteps picked up, my breathing grew shallow, my phone heavy in my sweaty palm. Every part of me screamed to run, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. That's when I heard it, a faint scrape, rubber against pavement. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. He was no longer crouching. He was standing now, following me, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, his movements jerky, his arms swung loosely at his sides like his joints weren't connected right. And then, he smiled. God, that smile. It stretched far too wide, teeth flashing in the dim alley light. It wasn't just a grin, it was a message. I see you. I sped up, the alley stretching before me like it was endless. My footsteps echoed hollowly, but his were heavier, louder, closer. Then he spoke. Hey. His voice was hoarse, wet like he'd been gargling gravel. You dropped something. The words crawled into my ears, sticky, mocking. I didn't answer. My heart pounded so loud I could hear the rush of blood in my head. Suddenly a loud slam. A hand smacked the wall right beside me. I jumped, spinning my head. His fingers too long, too bony, curled against the brick. The sound of nails scraping stone made my skin crawl. And then I realized he wasn't moving like a man anymore. He was crawling, his body pressed against the wall, limbs bending outward, sideways, like an insect scuttling across a surface. I broke into a sprint, my lungs burned, but adrenaline kept me moving. The alley went on forever. My shadow warped under the flickering lights, stretching ahead like it was trying to escape too. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear him, the scraping of his nails, the thud of palms hitting walls, the ragged rasp of his breathing. I burst out of the alley, stumbling into the street. A car honked, swerving, the driver yelling something I couldn't process. My chest heaved, my vision blurred. I whipped my head around. The alley was empty. The dumpsters stood silently, their shadows deep and still. No man, no movement, just silence, broken only by my panicked breaths. For weeks, I avoided that shortcut. I took the long way home, even if it meant walking an extra 15 minutes. But every now and then, late at night, when I pass the mouth of that alley, I swear I hear it. That same voice, low and broken. You dropped something, and each time I keep walking, because I know if I ever look back, he'll be there, waiting. Story 3, The Alley of Voices. I've lived in this city long enough to know its shortcuts. The little cuts through alleys that shave minutes off a walk. They're dirty, sure, but when you're exhausted and just want to get home, you take them. One night, after a late shift at work, I cut through an alley I didn't normally use. It was narrower than the others, hemmed in by tall brick walls with fire escapes that looked like rusting ribs jutting out into the night. A few weak bulbs flickered above me, one buzzing loudly, another dead altogether. The ground was uneven, slick with something I didn't want to identify. The smell hit me first, a mix of mildew, wet cardboard, and something metallic, almost like blood, but faint. I remember pulling my jacket tighter and muttering under my breath, just keep walking, 2 minutes and you're out. That's when I heard it. At first it was so faint I thought it was the wind pushing through the cracks of the buildings. A whisper. Help me. I froze, 1 foot mid-step. I turned, scanning the alley. Nothing but dumpsters and trash bags piled against the wall, glistening with moisture. I told myself I was imagining it, that my brain was playing tricks because I was tired. I kept walking, then louder this time. Over here. The voice was thin, stretched, like it was coming through a static-filled radio. It was impossible to place, not in front, not behind, not above. It was around. I gripped my phone in my pocket, thumb brushing the unlock button, ready to call someone, anyone. But something stopped me. Curiosity, against all better judgment. I slowed my pace and tilted my head, trying to catch it again. The voice came back, but now it wasn't alone. This way. Don't leave me here. Closer. Whispers, layered, male and female, young and old, some sobbing, some laughing quietly, all overlapping in a sick, broken chorus. I spun in place, chest tightening, but the alley stretched the same in both directions, too long, too empty. Who's there? I called out, my voice cracking. Silence, just the drip of water from a loose pipe overhead. I turned back and forced myself to keep moving, faster this time, nearly jogging. My footsteps echoed against the bricks, too loud, too sharp, but beneath them, threaded through the sound, were more whispers. They weren't asking for help anymore. "We see you. Don't run. You're almost ours." Every word drilled into me, my skin crawled with cold sweat. I yanked my phone out and flicked the flashlight on, sweeping it across the walls. That's when I noticed the graffiti. I'd passed it earlier but hadn't paid attention. Now, under the harsh white beam, I saw it for what it was. Not graffiti, dozens of faces, drawn in black marker, paint, chalk, some smeared, some fresh, all of them. Crudely sketched, with hollow eyes and screaming mouths. The closer I looked, the more I realized they weren't random doodles. They were identical. Every face was the same. And then, one of the faces blinked. My phone slipped in my hand. I gasped, stumbling back. The flashlight beam shook wildly, bouncing across the walls, catching movement where there shouldn't have been any. The whispers grew frantic. "Stay. Join us. You're already inside." I broke. I ran full speed, not caring if I slipped or fell. My breath tore through my lungs, hot and ragged. The end of the alley seemed impossibly far, the walls pressing in, tighter, tighter, and then laughter, not a whisper this time, loud, sharp, echoing. It chased me, bouncing from wall to wall, swelling until it felt like it was inside my head. I slammed into the streetlight at the end of the alley, nearly tripping into the road. A car honked, tires screeching, and the driver cursed at me as he swerved past. I spun around, sucking in desperate gulps of air. The alley was silent again, just trash bags, just brick, just shadows. I looked at the wall where the faces had been. Nothing but peeling paint and faded graffiti tags. No screaming mouths, no hollow eyes. And yet, as I turned to go, I swear I heard one last whisper, soft as a breath against my ear. "We'll see you again." Story 4. The Thing That Crawls. There is an alley in my city that I cannot forget. I have walked countless streets, some dirtier, some darker, some more dangerous, but this one remains etched into my memory as if the bricks themselves carved it into me. It is not remarkable in appearance, a narrow passage wedged between two aging apartment blocks, cluttered with dumpsters, bottles, and scraps of forgotten life, and yet it is different. The difference lies not in what is seen, but in what is felt. The air is always colder there, heavy with moisture even when the rest of the city suffocates under the heat of summer. The bricks sweat, their surface slick to the touch. The pavement never dries, holding a sheen of dampness that glitters faintly under the light. The smell hangs thick, metallic, sour, and earthy, like rust soaked in mildew. It is a place that seems to resist belonging to the world outside, a fragment of space where time lingers unnaturally. On most nights, I avoided it. Instinct kept me away. But one night, intoxicated and careless, I entered. The party I had left behind still echoed in my ears, the muffled bass, the laughter that blurred together, the sour taste of beer clinging to my tongue. But inside the alley, the noise of the city vanished. It was as though I had stepped through a threshold that sealed sound away. My own footsteps became unnervingly loud, ricocheting between the narrow walls until they no longer sounded like mine. When I muttered a nervous word to myself, my voice returned a fraction too late, like an imitation spoken by someone else. Then I heard it, the sound that ended my illusions of safety. It was a dragging noise, a deliberate scrape, long and unhurried, the sound of something hard clawing across stone. Scratch, it came again. Closer, my phone trembled in my hand as I drew it from my pocket. The thin cone of light trembled along the walls, over trash and shadow, until it revealed movement. At first, I thought it was garbage shifting, but then a hand emerged from beneath the dumpster. I still see that hand when I close my eyes. The skin was stretched thin, taut over bones that jutted at unnatural angles. The fingers were long, too long, ending in nails that were not quite human. They were splintered, jagged, and uneven, carving faint grooves into the pavement as they reached forward. The flesh seemed dry and wet at once, leathery, yet shining with a glisten that caught the light. Then the head came. It slid into the open with the slowness of something savoring the moment. The skull was narrow, the cheekbones too sharp, as though they might slice the air. Its eyes were hollows, dark pits with a suggestion of reflection, like water in a well too deep to see the bottom. The skin clung to the bone, slick and glistening as though it had been submerged. The smell arrived next. It was thick and suffocating, a blend of rot, mold, and rancid meat. It filled my throat and burned my stomach, making every breath a struggle. The body followed, but it did not move like a body should. Its limbs unfolded in jerks and snaps. The knees bent backwards, the elbows cracked sideways. It crawled forward on all fours, but not with the grace of an animal. Rather, with the broken mimicry of something that had studied humans and assembled itself incorrectly. Every motion was punctuated by the crack of joints shifting beyond their design. I stood frozen, my body betraying me. Fear seized me so completely that I could not scream, could not run. My thoughts were sharp and loud, move, 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 but my body remained still. Then its head jerked, snapped toward me so violently I heard the sound of its own neck break. Its mouth opened, not with the limitations of flesh, but with a tearing, splitting hunger. It stretched wider and wider still, until it gaped from ear to ear. Drool spilled in heavy ropes, dripping and splashing against the wet concrete. Only then did my body obey. I ran, but the alley did not let me escape. It lengthened, twisted, distorted. Corners appeared that had never been there, drawing me deeper, and no matter which way I turned, it was there, ahead of me, crawling out from the dark, clinging to the wall like an insect, skittering across the ceiling, its eyes never breaking from mine. It was behind me, it was above me, it was everywhere at once. I stumbled, fell, tore open the skin of my palms against the pavement, but even through the pain I scrambled upward, forcing my legs to move. My lungs burned, my chest cracked with every gasp, but the dragging behind me was faster now, louder, no longer patient but ravenous. And then I saw it, the faint orange glow of street lamps at the end of the alley. I hurled myself forward with what strength remained. The world funneled into that light, every beat of my heart slamming against my ribs until it drowned out everything else. And then I broke through. I spilled onto the sidewalk, collapsed under the street lamps, choking for air. The city was alive again, the hum of cars, the footsteps of strangers, the soft murmur of late-night conversations. People turned to look at me. To them, I was only another drunk stumbling home. But I turned back, and the alley was silent, empty, still. For a fragile second, I almost believed it hadn't happened, that my mind had warped. Shadows in two shapes, that alcohol had lured me into paranoia. Then I looked at my arms, for scratches ran down each one. Deep, clean, parallel. They were not scrapes from a fall. They were deliberate marks, cut as neatly as if claws had held me. The doctors said it was an animal, a stray dog, a raccoon, something desperate, but I know better, because even now, when the night is still and I lie in bed with the city hushed outside my window, I hear it again. That dragging sound, slow, patient, as though it has never stopped waiting. Maybe alleys are just alleys. Strips of concrete carved between buildings, forgotten places where trash gathers and shadows linger, places we pass through without thinking. But then again, maybe not, because sometimes the wrong turn doesn't just leave you lost. Sometimes it takes you somewhere else. To a loop that won't let you go, two voices that whisper where no one stands, two doors that should never open, two things that shouldn't crawl, but do, and the scariest part, these stories could have been anyone's, a worker heading home, a student cutting across town, or maybe you tomorrow, next week, late at night when you think no one is watching. So the next time you step into a dark alley, ask yourself, is it really a shortcut? Or the last path you'll ever walk? If you've made it this far, remember, don't look back, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the moment you stop paying attention is the moment the dark notices you.